The morning air was cold and silver-gray when Alexander Royce stepped through the wrought iron gates of Rosewood Cemetery, his breath curling into clouds against the November chill. The billionaire rarely came here anymore. Grief had a way of turning sacred places into wounds that never quite closed. 3 years had passed since his wife Eleanor was laid beneath the marble stone that bore her name and the inscription she'd chosen herself. She made the world gentler. Those words cut through him every time. A bittersweet reminder of the woman who had believed kindness was a currency more valuable than gold. Without her, his world had lost color. The penthouses, the limousines, the towering offices filled with polished glass. All of it had become a quiet monument to loneliness. He stood before her grave, brushing a leaf from the carved letters, when a faint sound caught his ear, the rustle of fabric, the soft murmur of voices. He turned and saw them. 2 small figures crouched a few yards away, their thin coats clinging to their shoulders, their hair tangled and damp from the early mist. They were twin girls, identical, fragile, with eyes the same warm hazel Eleanor once had. They looked too young to be alone, too small to carry the exhaustion that shadowed their faces. One of them held a wilted bouquet of daisies, pressing it gently against the grave beside Eleanor's. The other whispered softly, as though speaking to someone unseen. For a long, stunned moment, Alexander thought grief was playing tricks on him, that his longing for Eleanor had conjured ghosts out of the fog. But when one of the girls noticed him, her eyes widened, not in fear, but recognition.
Are you Alexander?
Sir, we didn't mean to be here, she said softly, her voice trembling with cold. We just wanted to leave flowers for the lady who used to talk to us. Alexander's heart froze. The lady who used to talk to them? Eleanor had been gone for years, and yet, these children spoke of her as if she had just walked away yesterday. Slowly, he crouched down to their level, his expensive coat brushing the wet ground. What did she say to you? He asked quietly. The girls exchanged a glance, their faces pale under the gray light. She told us someone kind would find us here, the older one whispered. Someone who needed to remember what love sounds like. The words hit him with the force of memory. Of Eleanor's laugh, her warmth, her unshakable faith in people. He stared at them, unable to speak, as they went on to describe the woman who had sat with them at a homeless shelter years ago, who'd brought them food and told them stories about a man who built towers so tall he forgot how to look down. Every word, every detail, the daisy flowers, the gentle voice, the way she called them her little lights. It was all Eleanor. His chest tightened until it hurt. She had known these girls. She had met them before her death, cared for them, and somehow, through the strange grace of fate, led them back to him. Standing in the quiet cemetery, Alexander felt something stir inside him. A warmth he hadn't allowed himself to feel since the day he buried her. These girls were not an accident. They were a message. A bridge between what he'd lost and what he was meant to find again. He looked at them, these 2 fragile souls shivering in the cold, and said gently, "Come with me." They hesitated, but when he smiled, really smiled, they nodded, as if recognizing something familiar in him. He led them toward his car, unaware that his life, which had long been frozen in mourning, was about to begin again. Back at his mansion, the silence felt different that evening. Not heavy, but waiting. The twin girls sat near the fireplace, wrapped in blankets too large for their tiny frames, their faces soft in the orange glow. Their names were Lily and Rose. They ate quietly, with the delicate manners of children who'd learned not to expect second helpings. Alexander sat across from them, his hands resting loosely on the edge of the polished oak table, studying the twins the way a man studies his own reflection after years of avoidance, searching for truths he had long tried to hide from himself. The fire crackled quietly in the stone fireplace behind them, casting flickering amber light across the room. Shadows danced across the girls' faces, revealing the fine freckles on their cheeks, the wisps of auburn hair curling softly around their ears, and the faint lines of weariness etched into their young features. Their eyes, large and luminous, seemed impossibly wise for their age, carrying a depth of sadness and hope intertwined. Alexander's chest ached as he took in every detail. The way Lily hugged the wilted daisies to her chest like a talisman, the way Rose's small hands twisted the edge of her threadbare scarf. Piece by piece, they began to tell him their story. They spoke quietly, almost reverently, as if the room itself were a sacred space where secrets and memories could be laid bare. Their mother had died 2 winters ago, leaving them to navigate the brutal world alone. Nights spent in abandoned alleyways, mornings searching dumpsters for scraps of bread, Fleeting moments of kindness from strangers who rarely stayed long enough to make a lasting mark. This was the rhythm of their existence. And yet, through it all, they carried a memory that seemed almost impossible. A woman with kind eyes, who had sat with them in a shelter long ago, weaving stories into their lives like golden threads, offering them warmth, laughter, and daisy chains to brighten the darkest hours. She used to tell us stories, Lily said softly, her voice breaking the hush of the room, about a man who could build anything, towers, bridges, even entire cities, but didn't know how to build a home again. She paused, glancing at her sister for reassurance, and then looked back at Alexander, her hazel eyes bright and unwavering. She said he'd forgotten how beautiful life could be when shared. Alexander's throat tightened. Eleanor's words, carried through these children across time and circumstance, landed in his heart like a key unlocking a door he hadn't dared approach in years. He could see her there, in every syllable, her gentle teasing wrapped in truth, and the unwavering conviction in her belief in him. Rose, the quieter twin, lifted her gaze and met his. Her eyes shimmered as if reflecting the flames of the fireplace and the quiet hope in her own heart. She told us, Rose whispered, her voice almost inaudible, that if we ever met the man who smiled like the sun but cried like rain, we should tell him she still believes in him. The simplicity of those words, the honesty of them, cut through Alexander like a sudden winter chill. The world seemed to pause. Every sound outside the mansion, the soft rustle of trees, the distant hum of the city, even the tiny crackle of the fire, fell away until all that remained was the truth laid bare before him. Eleanor had found a way to reach him even after she was gone. Through these two fragile, extraordinary children, she had sent one final message. One last act of love that demanded not just acknowledgement, but response. Tears began to stream down his face, unrestrained, purifying, washing away years of hardened attachment and silent grief. He realized, in a way that was both devastating and liberating, that wealth had never filled the emptiness inside him. Not his skyscrapers, not the yachts, not the hundreds of millions in accounts scattered across the globe. None of it could ever replicate what he was feeling in this quiet room, in the presence of these small, resilient human beings. Connection, empathy, love. These were the true measures of a life well lived, and they had been staring him in the face for years without him knowing it. Hours passed as he listened to the twins recount small moments of joy and sorrow, their words weaving a tapestry of resilience and hope. He heard of the cold nights in alleyways softened by a kind stranger's blanket, of the brief sparks of wonder in the world's small miracles, and of the tiny hands that Eleanor had once held, encouraging them to believe in themselves when no one else would. Alexander felt his heart swell and ache at once. He made a silent promise to himself, not to Eleanor, not even to the children, but to the man he had been and the man he still could become. He would not waste another moment in lonely regret. The following morning, he moved with purpose. He called his board, his lawyers, and the heads of his foundation. Every word he spoke carried the gravity of a man awakened. By the end of the day, the Eleanor Royce Foundation for Lost Children was announced, an organization devoted to finding, housing, educating, and nurturing homeless children across the nation. Yet, the most profound transformation was unseen, happening quietly in a lawyer's office as Alexander signed adoption papers, placing Lily and Rose under his protection and giving them his last name. A family, long lost, suddenly found, began that very moment. Years later, when anyone asked Alexander what had changed him, he would only offer a small knowing smile, his eyes reflecting memories too tender for words. "Two little girls reminded me my wife still believed in me," he would say simply. On the anniversaries of Eleanor's death, the three of them would visit her grave, leaving fresh daisies where wilted ones had once lain, whispering stories into the wind. Alexander would feel peace unlike any he had known before, the ache of loneliness replaced with quiet joy. And sometimes as they turned to leave, a gentle breeze carried the faint scent of daisies, as if Eleanor herself were walking beside them. Smiling, proud, and witnessing a love that had transcended even death itself, a love that had finally found its way home.